Hello and welcome to our market view presentation. We'll be doing our presentation on the currency pair GBP and AUD, which is the Great British Pound and the Australian Dollar. Our team consists of three members, Lucas Morrison, Zhong, and myself, Darcy Barker. Moving on to the Australian Dollar. It's just some basic information. It's the Australian currency. It is a floating exchange rate as of 1983. It would currently be considered a dirty float, which means that the central bank intervenes with the currency. And according to the Reserve Bank of Australia, it currently has an exchange rate of 1.5% and an inflation rate of 1.9%. Moving on to the Great British Pound, it is the currency of the United Kingdom. It also has a floating exchange rate, but it would be considered a clean float, meaning that the Bank of England does not directly intervene in the currency exchange. And according to the Bank of England, its current exchange rate is 0.5%, while its inflation rate is 2.7%. So moving on to one of the main theories that leads us to our conclusion in regards to the relationship between our currency pair is the terms of trade, which is the ratio of an index of a country's export prices compared to the index of its import prices. As shown, the terms of trade for the United Kingdom are forecast to increase in the short term, therefore showing an improvement. Essentially, this shows that it is likely that the United Kingdom's net exports are rising at a greater rate than its net imports. Likewise, the Australian terms of trade show a decrease in the short term, therefore having the opposite effects. As such, it is likely that this will result in the GBP appreciating in the short term and the AUD depreciating. The second theory that we'll be using to compare the relationships between our currency pair is relative inflation. Relative inflation is the differences and changes in the two currencies' inflation rates to determine the change in value for each of the currencies over the foreseeable period. Looking at the trends for the Australian dollar, due to a forecasted upward trend in the inflation for the Australian dollar from 1.9% in quarter 1 to 2.2% in quarter 3, it is likely that the demand for the Australian dollar will decrease, meaning that the curve will shift to the left, and then this increased demand for imports, therefore supply, will increase. This will result in a fall in the value of the Australian dollar, effectively meaning that this indicator suggests that the AUD, Australian dollar, will depreciate against the pound. Likewise, if we look at the analysis of the pound, due to a forecasted downward trend in the inflation rate of the pound from 2.7% in quarter 1 to 2.5% in quarter 3, it is likely that demand for the pound will increase and decrease the demand for imports. This will result in a rise in value for the GDP. Effectively, this indicator suggests that the pound will appreciate against the Australian dollar. The last theory that we'll be looking at to compare our currency pairs is exchange rate expectations. This is looking at exchange rate forecasts and comparing them with the current exchange rate to see if there is to be a significant change in the exchange rate of a currency or multiple currency. According to multiple sources and forecasts, it seems as though the projection for the Australian dollar is to depreciate in the short term. As such, this may influence the market significantly, creating a causation effect that investors will sell their AUD for another currency. Likewise, it appears as though the British pound is forecast to appreciate in the short term. This will likely result in demand decrease as the investors sell, and then an increase in the supply as people are more willing to sell. Effectively, this is supporting theory that the AUD will depreciate against the pound. Looking at the pound now, conversely, due to the projected appreciation of the pound, investors are likely to try and purchase the pound, where people will be less willing to sell due to its increasing value. Effectively, this also states that the pound will appreciate against the AUD in the short term. So in conclusion, we speculate that the pound will appreciate against the Australian dollar, and the Australian dollar will depreciate against the pound in the short term. We speculate this due to our three theories stating that it's most likely that the pound will rise in value while the Australian dollar decreases in value, being terms of trade, relative inflation, and exchange rate expectations. Thank you for listening to this presentation.